The things that I think are so basic are not so basic to other people. For example, what is a carbohydrate? What are carbohydrates found in? What are carbohydrates made up of? So I sat back and I said, you know what, let's start with the 101, the basics. Let's start with carbs. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christine and I'm a registered dietitian. I would love for you to subscribe so that you can become notified every time I put up a new video so that you don't miss any of them. So today I thought, let's start a new series, and I was like, what's it gonna be on and what am I gonna name it? And then I was like, wait a minute. A lot of times I've realized that the things that I think are so basic are not so basic to other people. For example, what is a carbohydrate? What are carbohydrates found in? What are carbohydrates made up of? So I sat back and I said, you know what, let's start with the 101, the basics. Let's start with carbs. So carbohydrates are actually relatively easy to consume as they're found in so many things in our diet. They can be found in fruits, for one, grain products, any of the starchy vegetables such as corn or peas, as well as anything that has had sugar added to it. So any of the baked products or any of the sugar sweetened beverages such as pop or Coke, or I guess Coke is a pop, so yeah. So today we're going to discuss the science behind carbohydrates, including their structures, the digestion process, the requirements, as well as the benefits of whole grains over refined grains. So carbohydrates are one of the primary energy sources that we consume within our diet, and 1 gram of carbohydrate provides us with 4 calories of energy. And the standard diet, like not based on anyone's age or weight being calculated right now, just a standard diet, it recommends around 2,000 calories per day per person. So if 1 gram of carbohydrate is providing us with 4 calories, then you can do the math to figure out how many you're really having throughout the day. Since carbohydrates are one of the 3 macronutrients, the other 2 being protein and fat, which I will get to in a later video, carbohydrates can be composed of mono, di, oligo, or polysaccharides. And that just means that they vary in the amount of sugar molecules and in their structure, so in the way that they're made up. The simplest carbohydrate structure which we consume is called a monosaccharide. So that just means that there's 1 sugar molecule, and that includes glucose, fructose, and galactose. Glucose is the one that's found so often within our diet, and that's actually the one that's able to cross the blood-brain barrier in our brain so that it can provide us with nutrients, because our brain definitely needs carbohydrates to sustain energy and to keep us going. Fructose, on the other hand, is the sweetest natural sugar that we find. So it's often found in things such as fruits, honey, and high fructose corn syrup. Galactose is actually not found in foods naturally or on its own. So what it does is it binds with the other monosaccharide, which is glucose, and it does that to form a more complex unit. With disaccharides, that's a carbohydrate that has 2 sugar molecules that are linked together. So that consists of 2 monosaccharides. With disaccharides, that includes sucrose, maltose, and lactose. Sucrose is more commonly known as table sugar, and it's a combination of glucose and fructose. It's found in fruits, vegetables, sugarcane, sugar beets, as well as honey. Maltose is actually found in something called molasses, and that's a combination of 2 glucose molecules. Maltose is usually used as a substrate to ferment beer. Lastly, lactose is a combination of glucose and galactose, and it's usually referred to as milk sugar, or as the sugar that's found in milk. Moving on to oligosaccharides, those are made when there are 3 to 9 sugary units linked together, whereas polysaccharides are made when there's more than 10 sugary units that are linked together to make long chains of carbohydrates. Polysaccharides are actually complex carbohydrates, so that means they include things such as starch, glycogen, and fiber, and we will get to exactly what those things do shortly. Starch is actually the storage form of glucose in plants, and it's found in things such as grains, tubers, and legumes. It is digested into sugar, but it actually doesn't taste sweet when you eat them, except for things such as sweet potato or such. When we talk about glycogen, that's the storage form of glucose in animal sources, and it's stored in the liver and the muscles, and it can be used as a quick source of energy. Glycogen is not found in any of the food sources we consume, so therefore it is not a source of dietary carbohydrates. Lastly, fiber is a non-digestible carbohydrate, which is not absorbed by the body. It can either be soluble, which attracts water and forms a gel within our body, and this gel is helpful because it helps to lower cholesterol and control blood sugar levels. Fiber can also be insoluble, so what that does, it's kind of acting like a roughage for our body, and it just tends to go through our body without really being digested, and that helps to add bulk to our stool. Or our feces, whatever you would like to call it. Both soluble and insoluble fiber are really good for us because they kind of just pass through the small intestine, where they then become attacked or fermented by the bacteria in our intestines, and from there they're then excreted as bulk into our stool. Fiber is really important for us because it does many things to our bodies, such as helping to prevent constipation, lowering our cholesterol levels, as well as slowing down how quickly those simple sugars or monosaccharides are absorbed within our bloodstream. And fiber is actually found in so many sources, so you can find it in vegetables, fruit, oats, legumes, seeds, nuts, anything and everything. So make sure you're getting enough fiber because we definitely need it to function normally.
Please disregard the pouring rain from here on out in the video.
Also, there's a specific kind of fiber which is called beta-glucan, which has been shown to be beneficial for heart health. It's found in sources such as oats, barley, mushrooms, yeast, as well as seaweed. So since we've talked about what carbohydrates are, how they're composed, what they're made up of, let's go ahead and talk about the requirements and just how much you need to function throughout each day. So on its own, the brain requires 130 grams of carbohydrate per day just to supply it with the energy it needs just to go about and do our activities of daily living. The recommendations state that 45 to 65% of our total caloric intake should be coming from carbohydrates. So if you're consuming a diet that has approximately 2,000 calories, your intake of carbohydrates should be 45 to 65% of that number. Since we talked so heavily about fiber, the recommendations for fiber state that there should be 14 grams of fiber for every 1,000 gram of carbohydrate. So again, if you're consuming a 2,000 calorie diet, you would do 14 grams times 2, since you need 14 grams for 1,000 calories. So times 2 for the 2,000 calories, and that leaves you with 28 grams of fiber. So it really depends on how much you're consuming and what you're having. But the most important thing is not to count these numbers or to figure out exactly how much you're eating or how much you need. What's really important is that you're having whole foods and things that will nourish your body, rather than having tons of the processed stuff which really has little to no fiber or nutrients. Out of the 3 macronutrients, carbohydrates are actually the easiest for us to digest, since their digestion actually begins in our mouth. We have an enzyme that actually attacks carbohydrates right once we chew them, and the breakdown of the carbohydrates are able to begin really quickly, so that means carbohydrates are really quick to get absorbed. So due to their simple structure, they're able to provide us with a quick source of energy. So it's usually good to have a good source of carbohydrate at breakfast, before a workout, as well as after a workout, to replenish all the carbohydrates that you just used during your workout. So this is a good thing in some reasons, but it can also be a negative aspect when you need something that's going to sustain you for a longer period of time. They're not going to keep you as full for as long as protein and fat can do. And if it's a refined carbohydrate, which I'm actually going to discuss in a second, if it's a refined carbohydrate, it's even worse, I would say, because it had a lot of the fiber removed from it. And as we just discussed, fiber is really important for keeping you full and satiated throughout the day. And then when you have that fiber that's removed from these refined carbohydrates, then that means that the carbohydrate is broken down within our body even quicker, and it's absorbed even faster, and it can cause a really big impact on your blood sugar levels because there's no fiber slowing it down. So you're going to consume this refined carbohydrate, and then it's just going to spike your blood sugar levels up, and then it's just going to crash, and you're going to feel so tired and so groggy. So I definitely recommend whole grains over a refined grain product. So turning over to the whole grains versus refined grains debate, because there's been a lot of confusion about this. A lot of my friends and family don't know really the difference, and they kind of get confused because there are so many grain products out there. So I thought today, let's debunk it. So the easiest way for you to follow along with what I'm saying, I'm going to insert a picture of a wheat kernel either on this side or maybe it's on this. I don't know what side it's on, but whatever, you get the picture. So the wheat kernel has an outer layer, and that outer layer is called the bran. It also has an inner layer called the endosperm, and then at the very center it has the part that's called the germ. And the germ contains the majority of the nutrients. So when we look at whole grains, those are products that actually have all 3 layers of the kernel still intact. So So none of it has been removed, none of it has been processed, it's all within it. That includes products such as brown rice, oats, popcorn, barley, and a lot more. In contrast, refined grains are a lot more processed because it's had a lot of the bran and the germ removed. And as we just talked about, the bran is the outer layer while the germ is the smallest inner layer. So all that's left is really the endosperm, and the endosperm is the one that's the most starchy. So when you're removing the bran and the germ, a lot of the nutrients and fiber are also getting removed. And since all that's left is the endosperm, which is the part that's really starchy, fluffy, and white, that explains why you get white bread in the end. So that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful as I gave you the basics on carbohydrates. If there are any other topics that you would like me to cover, please let me know. I would love to do so, and don't forget to subscribe so I can see you in my next video. Bye!